It's about time I say this, because I've gotten a lot of noise in the comment section surrounding this topic. No, you do not require raw meat for your diet to be a proper human diet. I have gotten this comment on more occasions than I can even remotely approximate a number for. I mean, it's an exorbitant level of comments that I've received. And the reason for this is because there is quite a bit of crossover between my fan base and, other fan bases within other raw primal, crowds and creators or whatever. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. In fact, if you would like to consume your meat raw, go ahead, as long as you understand the risks that are involved with that. Because as much as people want to pretend like germ theory is not a thing at all, it's not that. It's like nature versus nurture. Both of them play a role, but it's not exclusively one or the other. It never is. Same thing with germ theory and terrain theory. They both play a role, okay? I've even talked about this before when talking about raw meat and the risks associated with that and how they're vastly overblown if you look at the CDC's own statistics regarding this. The incidence rates of illness and even subsequent death from those illnesses is roughly the same between the plants that it's linked to and the meat products that it's linked to. If you didn't realize this, I actually can put this up on the screen in post-editing, in post-recording, to show you that, yes, it's about 50-50 exactly when it comes to the incidence rates of illness between plant foods that are the result of eating, plant foods and the result of eating meat, with the implication that, the meat caused it because it was undercooked. No. However, in order to be extremely objective here, there were technically more deaths that resulted from the illnesses that came from meat products than the plant products. However, it's hard to tell whether or not, it's impossible to tell actually based on these statistics alone, whether or not this was actually due to, the meat being raw, or the fact that, the meat came from large factories and had a greater chain of command and therefore more opportunities to become contaminated or cross-contaminated. Okay, this which I have a feeling is probably the reason why, which is why I always have said, if you're going to eat your meat raw, source it properly. Ideally, you'd be sourcing it yourself from an animal, but not every one of us is a farmer, nor necessarily wants to be, or even can be in the first place. So anyway, that's what I've always said. But this idea that you must consume your meat raw in order to be consuming a truly species-appropriate diet, or what approximates the most species-appropriate diet from every inference we have, is completely erroneous. It's dogmatic nonsense, and I'm sorry. I am not a channel, as much as it may shock some people, especially the newer people on the channel, or the people that have really only watched my reaction videos. Yes, I put on this angry face. Okay, yes, I understand that. I'm not dogmatic. The angry face is really only in response to people being convicting about things that you can't be convicting about. My entire personality on this channel is about recognizing ambiguity, which is the precise opposite of what someone that's dogmatic would do. Okay? Not only was I extremely non-dogmatic, or whatever the antithesis, the antonym to that is, whenever I first started this, and whenever I first, wrote my book, Contraindicated, I've actually become less and less dogmatic. I've recognized even more nuance, which has gotten me into some trouble. Not too much, to be fair, thankfully. I'm glad to see how, the majority of people, and particularly my fan base, is actually quite intelligent and much less dogmatic, and open-minded and curious. That's a good way of putting it. And it's important, okay? It is very important. It's critical. But the reason that you don't need to consume your meat raw is because we have been cooking our meat for at least 900,000 years. Okay, we have. And that is plenty of time to have adapted to the changes that happen in meat whenever you cook it over fire. Okay? It's just the truth. Now, a lot of people will say, well, there are toxins in meat. There's AGEs in meat. There's advanced glycation end products in meat when you cook it. Yes, but if the amount of AGEs in the meat is the same amount that we would have encountered and consumed over the course of 900,000 years when we started cooking our meat, then it's totally, at the very least, innocuous. It is. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to consume those. Once again, we have an acidic enough stomach to hedge against the possibility of developing, illness from potentially contaminated raw meat. Okay, raw meat, go ahead and eat it. And that's the thing. I wouldn't have had a problem. I wouldn't have even had to address this at all in the way that I'm addressing it in this video if the people that decided to eat a primal sort of lifestyle, a raw meat sort of lifestyle, would have been more respectful in the comment section about it. Hey, you cook your meat, fine. I don't do it because of this, but whatever, you do you. But unfortunately, there always has to be dogma in every space. Every single space, and it's disappointing. And this is not designed to be an attack on any of my viewers that are primal. That's why I said what I said in the beginning. If you're primal, cool. In fact, in a way, I sort of envy you. I wish that I could be a lot more comfortable embarking upon that experience than I am right now. And eventually, maybe I will. I like to experiment. It's cool. Great. I've never had raw meat in my entire life. So that's fine. It's fine. Do not think that I am trying to say that, you're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm not. In my book, I actually talk about it. I said, what about raw meat? What about raw meat? And I said, the first sentence is, this one cracks me up. It's not because I actually look down upon that decision. It's more so to do with the fact that the people that are saying it the most, at least in my comment section, and at least, the loud ones on the internet, are saying it in a way that's sanctimonious, in a way that's like, I'm superior to you because, well, you think that you're doing the right thing by, eating a lot of meat, but you're cooking it all. Bad, 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 bad. Look at me, I eat raw meat, you coward. I mean, that's why I said what I said about it, in the way that I said it. But no, you do not need to eat your meat raw. In fact, you can have the best of both worlds by making it medium rare, or rare, actually, because then you only get a sear on the outside and most of the inside is not cooked, which is actually how I eat my meat, unless it's ground beef. I cook that well done. So something just doesn't sit right with me about having the raw ground beef, or even slightly cooked, like medium rare. Unless it's on a burger, before I was carnivore, if it was on a burger, I would want it medium. Humans are just irrational, aren't they? They're just illogical a lot of times. It's like, because that just doesn't make any sense, does it? Anyway, I had to clear this up. We all gotta treat each other with some more respect, frankly. And it's probably very ironic hearing that from me, with all the things that I have said in the past about creators in my personality that I put on, especially people like Jacob Foods recently. Yikes. But that stuff needs to be said too about the, pseudoscience. So anyway, I'm not backing off of what I said in the video, just so you guys know. But in everyday language, why do we do this? Even with people eating a standard diet, it's not good, and I wouldn't encourage it. And if they ask about it, I would not sugarcoat anything. I'd be like, no, not indicated, contraindicated. But I, of course, would also not look at them like they're a lesser person than me. We were all there at one point. Go back a few years ago when you were eating a standard diet. If someone looked at you and treated you like a piece of shit because you ate that way, would that be fair? Even if they were right, even if when you were listening to them, you were like, that makes more sense. If they were saying it to you like, you, would you enjoy that? Would you think, oh, he has a reason to be telling me that? No. So it's a different story whenever it's with reaction videos of people going online acting like they do know what they're talking about and they have the answer. Let's talk about nutrition. You should be doing this. Well, yeah, no. And this is what the science says. No. Completely different. So, before anyone tries to draw that parallel. Anyway, I've been rambling on long enough. No, you do not need to eat your meat raw for your diet to be the best approximation to a species-appropriate diet that we can have today in a modern world. Sorry, it's not. If it were, I would be the first to tell you. Okay? But no, it is not. So don't worry about cooking your meat. In fact, even if you want to do well done, go ahead, because it doesn't seem like there's any nutritional deficiencies that will happen even when eating well done meat. Okay, maybe there is. There's not a lot of science on this because not much science has been done on a carnivore diet. So, anyway, but it is my opinion. That's the beauty of having an opinion. It's my opinion. I can just say that, okay? Not health advice. Do what you want with what I say. Do what you will with what I say. So, with that being said, join me next time when I'm ranting about something else, having to clear something up. I'm talking about how I'm still in favor of zero carb and I'm not going to go full Paul Saladino or something, or reacting to sugar diet nonsense. Now, what the hell is this world? What the hell is going on in this world? Anyway, till then,